All right, folks, we are live.
Hi, welcome everybody to the February 4th meeting of the Northborough Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Becca, do you have the governor's?
Yes, I do.
For the Zoom meeting?
All right, get us started. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 38, section 18, and the governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting will be conducted by a remote participation. No in-person attendance by members of the public will be permitted. This meeting will be live streamed and will have no option for public participation. If you'd like to view or listen only, please visit the live stream link to YouTube that's available on the town website on our agenda for tonight.
Thank you. The first order of business we have tonight is just to approve the meetings from our January 7th meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those meeting notes?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Moved by Virginia, seconded by Shika. So those notes, meeting notes for January 7th are approved. We do have a guest this evening. Please, Chief
Tim,
Hopper.
real quick, Tim, before you start, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but we do need to do a roll call.
Oh, sorry.
Because we are,
Sorry.
we are in
Apologies.
this fun, I know you've been doing it for so long now. It's like, yeah, let's just go through everyone that's here.
Yeah, just Virginia Sims,
Present.
Becca Meekins,
Present.
Lauren Bailey Jones,
Present.
Deidre Writing,
Present.
Shika Holland,
Present.
Mary Leach,
Present.
and our guest this evening, Chief Liver.
Present.
And I am Tim Kalin. I'm chair of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. So like I was saying, Police Chief Liver was gracious enough to spend some time with us tonight. Just if we had any questions that we as a committee had for him, Chief, thank you very much for taking the time to meet with us. You know, just one of the things that, or the thing that this committee is charged with is making recommendations to the Board of Selectmen next spring for improvements that the community can make around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you and I have had some conversations about those topics. You're more than open with the challenges that you've had in filling those roles, and the need and the want to have the diversity represented in the police department. So I thought it would be good to hear from you if there's anything that we as a committee can research and recommend to the board that may be helpful for the department to find a different pool of candidates or expand the pool of candidates, I guess.
Well, as far as expanding the pool of candidates, I don't know what more we can do than what we have done. There are some commercial avenues that we haven't gone down where we can pay to have professional recruitment done. There are some associations that we reached out to the last time. Back in, we started in October, basically wrapped it up in November, the hiring process. But it's an industry-wide problem right now for police in general, period. The recruitment pool has shrunk to almost nothing. I can tell you that 10, 15 years ago, if we had 2 openings for patrol officers, so we had over 300 applicants.
Wow.
We've had patrol officer vacancies this year and last year due to retirements or people moving on to other jobs. And this last recruitment, we had 33 applicants. And that's going to fill 3 positions right now. The 2 of them have already been filled. And out of those 33 applicants, only 16 passed the physical requirements for the job. So our recruiting pool basically was 16 candidates. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, and this may go to one of the answers that you were asking for, Tim, as far as what can we do? I think in general, the police organizations in general need to put their recruiting information out in a way that lets people know at a younger age what the requirements are. We try to hire the best of the best. This is a public trust position. Officers are granted tremendous authority under the Constitution and under the state law and state constitution. And they have to make snap decisions. And we want people that are basically, when they come in the door, they're beyond repute. And they have a reputation for having solid, sound character, morals, and people that want to do the right thing for the right reasons. What's happening is society's changing. It's becoming much more permissive. You see around the country, most states, like I think it was Oregon just recently, or Washington rather, just decriminalized simple possession of all drugs. So if you are a user, for an example, Massachusetts, if you're a user, a regular or habitual user of a drug, even marijuana, because under the federal law, that's still considered a drug and a crime. That's a lifetime ban on gun ownership in Massachusetts and licensing. Well, if you can't be licensed as a police officer, possess a gun, you can't be a police officer. So we need to educate younger people at an earlier age. If you're looking to pursue a law enforcement career, these are the sort of things and behaviors that you have to avoid, because I don't want someone to come into work that smoking marijuana before a shift, and driving, a $40,000 police car at with blue lights and speeding. Letting the public know what the hiring standards are and what the expectations are. We used to have an Explorer post here, and we've talked about bringing it back. That's basically through the Boy Scouts. It's a co-ed program for kids that are between the ages of 13 or in 8th grade up to age 21. And it's basically a cadet program. They used to have them for the fire explorers. And it was basically, they meet once a week or once every other week, and they basically explored the career path of law enforcement or being a police officer. And that they would learn at an early age what the requirements were. It didn't become, it kind of lost favor. Kids wearing semi-police uniforms and being seen in police cars driving around as a ride along when you're 16 or in high school, all of a sudden, isn't as attractive as it was when you joined it in the middle school or 8th grade. But we had several people that were past explorers or in the exploring programs, myself included, that became police officers. So that sort of recruitment, that sort of exposure to police work or the career itself, because it's a vast career. When people talk about law enforcement, it's just not the Northborough Police Department. We're talking federal, state, every kind of federal agency you want. It pretty much all have the same hiring standards. So making our requirements known, posting it more widely as a profession, but again, that's not well within the confines of this group. But that seems to be the big issue. For instance, a lot of departments are now reviewing or revising tattoo policies. We've had a standard tattoo policy here since 1980. No tattoos that are visible while wearing the uniform. Nothing on the face, nothing on the neck, and nothing on the arms. And if you're wearing a summer bike patrol uniform, you can't have dragons and slaying things on your calves and thighs, because that's not quite the image we want of young children to be interacting with police officers. But it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit people because they get disqualified walking through the testing site because they have tattoos that are visible. We do give them 1 year, the 1 year period, that their 1 year annual probationary period, to have them removed if they so choose and want to keep pursuing the career. But some larger city departments that are having tremendous difficulty recruiting people have waived that entirely. Now you've got police officers with sleeves, and it's fine. I mean, I don't personally have anything about it, but it's not a professional appearance that I'm looking for in my uniforms. And I shouldn't say mine. That's what I grew up with here. I started in 1979, and the policy was, back in 1980. But that has been questioned. So that's something we could look at. I suppose it depends on whether or not how. I can tell you that we have disqualified some candidates because of tattoos that they do have may not have shown completely past the sleeve of a short sleeve shirt, but the tail end that had the skull with the bayonets through it in the blood, that was not acceptable. So that's just one area. Again, drug use. I was just recently, actually this month's edition of the International Association of Chiefs of Police magazine, the police chief was, they're talking about recruitment. And there's some data out there now that shows that up to 43% of kids, young adults up to age 23 right now, have some sort of criminal arrest record. In the past, that was not the case. And again, that's a changing in social norms and values, and a lack of, what I see, an erosion of personal accountability. And I want to do it, so I'm going to do it. We see a lot of younger kids doing things like shoplifting. They get caught. They get arrested. They have a criminal record. We don't hire criminals, especially if they were felony levels. The state law doesn't allow it. And in some minority groups, that rate's as high as 60%, according to the last article that I just read. So that's an impediment. So it's basically, I think, education, career fairs at like middle school. We've done those in the years past, but that's the extent of what I can think of doing. As far as expanding the candidate pool, there's nothing I can do about people that have arrest records. That's a statutory disqualification. Drug use, statutory disqualification because you can't be licensed to carry a firearm. So there are some things beyond my control. And the other aspect of that is we really need to, at an early age, get these kids that might be interested in a police career. They really have to understand the physical fitness standards, because they really don't teach phys ed anymore like the way they used to teach phys ed, where you had to run and you had to jump and you had to, run over, what do you call it? The vaulting, not vaulting.
Hurdles?
Running over the hurdles. And the biggest obstacle to all of our women candidates that we have had as of late has been the physical fitness standards. It's and they're scaled, they're rated, they're adjusted for age. There's a male standard, there's a female standard. Out of the
And that's a state standard, right, Chief?
Yes. Yeah, that's not that's beyond my control.
Okay.
Exactly. There's a state PAT test, and it's a physical abilities test. And that is just to get accepted to a police academy. And that's a mandatory test. And you have to run an obstacle course. You have to be able to crawl through a window, run upstairs, drag a 150-pound simulated person. There's an arrest simulator. You have to run over uneven turf or terrain. And there's a whole slew of other events in that test. And it's all timed. And you basically have 168.5 seconds depending on your age. And it increases the older you get a little bit. But it's not something that you're not going to be a couch potato, say I want to be a police officer, and go for your PAT test and pass. Actually, there's an entire manual that the Municipal Police Training Committee puts out on preparing for the PAT test in the police academy and the fitness steps you need to take. Kids aren't really engaging in fitness. what we're seeing is people that they can handle the run. They have to be able to run 1.5 miles in under, well, depending on age, 12 minutes. We have people that are really in very good shape. They run the mile in 7 minutes. We have other people that run the 1.5 miles in 7 or 8 minutes. And we have other folks that don't manage to run it in 18 minutes. They're walking across the finish line, and that's a disqualification. So now that's just to get into the academy. And then when you get to the academy, there's a physical assessment where you have to do a run, a 100-yard sprint, and a whole host of push-ups, sit-ups, and that's your benchmark. And you have to show a percentage of improvement by the time you graduate from the academy. And if you haven't done that by about 2/3 of the way through, they notify the agency that this person's probably not going to pass the physical fitness exam at the end of the academy. Now, we've invested 4 or 5 months of salary and into this person while they're at the academy, and they flunk out. That's why the PAT test happens before they even get to the academy. Now, we do our own using the same exact standards because I want to know that they can pass the one they're going to have to pass to get into the academy before I spend the money, time, and effort on getting them to the academy. And that's the last time where we had out of the 33, we had 16 that passed. And of the, I believe there was 5 or 6 women, only one passed the run, the 1.5 miles. She did a phenomenal job, but could not do the flexibility stretch or the push-ups. Again, upper body strength it's tough for a lot of women that don't know that they're going to be doing a push-up test. So letting people know what the physical requirements are. And then here, there's an annual physical fitness test that the officers take. So and that's not a disciplinary type. If they don't pass it, they just, they get a bonus. They get a few $100s for staying fit. So that's an issue.
Chief, can I interrupt for just 1 second?
Yeah, because I'm just rambling.
Lauren, you had a question?
I do. Thank you. Yes, I do have a question for Chief Liver.
Hmm?
So Chief Liver, at our last meeting in January, granted I wasn't here, but I did read the meeting minutes. Thank you, Mary, for your great minutes. Becca, you had brought up a really interesting quote, I think from an article in a magazine. And when in the magazine, it talked about, when you have advice for small local governments, to create equitable and inclusive environments, what's your main piece of advice? And I found it really interesting. It said, instead of asking, how do I attract diverse talent or how can I increase diversity in my organization, instead ask, well, what does it mean to be inclusive of other races, cultures, and perspectives? And I know you guys probably talked about this a little bit more last meeting. So Chief, I'm wondering, I guess I'm asking you that question. So for the Northborough Police Department, how are you being inclusive of other races, cultures, and perspectives, or how could you in the future?
Everyone here, it's a state requirement that everyone here has diversity training. We do it a couple of times a year. We have some very up-to-date and stringent policies regarding how people will be treated as an accredited agency. I can assure you that we have the best practices as we move forward in dealing with inclusion and diversity. I don't know if I'm quite understood your question. Are we talking about moving forward as from like recruiting and people, or just with dealing with the community in general?
I think that it's both. It seems like it's, twofold. So in dealing with communities and understanding races, cultures, and perspectives on the job, but then also maybe the culture as well within the building, within the force. That's how I interpreted it anyways.
Okay. Good question. I wasn't prepared for that one. So I think that we have a very young department that just by virtue of their age, they have grown up with more of a perspective of inclusion, especially like just from the schools. it used to be when I went to school, if a child had special needs, they went to a different school. But, they're included in the classroom. They grow up with that. I mean, my son was the best buddy for many years at his elementary school. So I think from that sense, my younger officers, they are more receptive to the whole topic. And I think that the training that we've had has been very enlightening. I do remember watching the training video, and I quite honestly, I forget exactly what the scenario was, but it hit me all of a sudden that wow, I've done that. And so that was an eye opener for me as far as implicit bias, so to speak. And I think that everybody here has a very good understanding of what's expected. And I mean, I can't change people overnight, but believe me, they get it. We have the MPTC and the new Police Reform Act is going to mandate a lot of changes, especially on that front. And I haven't had a chance to digest the entire 270 pages of that legislation, but it's going to change the face of policing in Massachusetts. Some good, some not so good from a police perspective, but it's again, its focus is being driven by the whole concept of diversity and inclusion and civil rights and just good community policing, which I like to say that we excel at here to begin with. This station is open to anybody that wants to come in here at any time. We'll answer questions. I've always said to all my people, you can answer questions. We're not the secret police. We're not the military police. We're civilians, just like you. We just happen to have a job where we're police officers. And we don't have any secrets from the public. We don't always share our investigative techniques, but as far as what happens in this building, what my expectations of my officers are, I'll gladly share that with anybody. And they all know what my position is on this and what's tolerated and what's not. So I guess I hope I answered your question somewhat.
You did. Yes. Thank you, Chief Liver. And I think, I was thinking about that quote, and as you were speaking and really just talking about these difficulties during the recruitment process, this is, as you mentioned, this is not a Northborough issue. This is a nationwide. And, I don't know if this recruitment issue will clear up anytime soon. And so I guess in asking that question, I was thinking, well, if we can't necessarily change how the recruitment process is going right now, well, then maybe there are other things that we can focus on. And it does sound like, with the diversity training, and I think just always being open-minded about learning new things and, talking to the community. And so I really just enjoyed what you said and sort of learning more about the inner workings of the police department, because I know nothing. So thank you very much, Chief.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Chief, I have a quick question. Oh, sorry,
Sure.
Tim, were you going to say something?
No, go ahead.
I actually have two quick questions, but first, thank you for joining us in the first place. This is super helpful to get your insights. One question was around, I know you talked about the policy around the tattoos and how you may want to revisit that at some point. And it sounds like that's within your team's control or your control. But it sounds like there's a lot of other things outside of your control. I think it might be helpful in understanding like the idea of transparency within your department. If you'd be open to sharing some of the policies that may be up for debate or discussion, because then that might help us with some of those recommendations that we're looking to make. If you'd be comfortable with sharing something like that, and you don't have to answer that right now.
Well,
What was that?
I'll gladly answer it.
Okay.
It's taken a while for the town to upgrade its website, its platform. And we now have more control from a department aspect as far as what we put on for content.
Mm,
And I fully intend to put our entire policy manual on there. Now,
Okay.
I will say, with exception of our all hazards emergency response plans to certain things, because under the state's public records law, our response to like a school shooting
Yep.
or a mass casualty event, from a criminal perspective, is not something we're going to advertise.
Absolutely.
Our response to bank alarms or holdups in progress, we're not going to,
Mhm.
you know, you can all imagine what they might entail, but the minutia of how we are going to respond and what our response plan is for those sorts of things won't be, but like pursuit policies, arrest policies, bias indicator policies,
Yep.
fair and impartial policing, that'll all be on the website.
Okay.
I hope within the next 6 months. I also, my monthly reports to the selectmen, I have decided to include a monthly breakdown of all the traffic stops and citations that we issue by race.
Mhm.
And I intend to get that put up on the website as well. And moving forward, there are some, again, this will have to do with some town council issues and digesting the Police Reform Act. But my intention before that even came out was to monthly list any citizens' complaints that were received and how they were adjudicated. Now,
Mm,
prior to that, I was not going to list officer names because there are employee employment issues in public law. But under the Police Reform Act, I do know that internal affairs investigations will be public.
Got it.
So I just want to wait. That's got to vet itself out because I'm sure there'll be some court cases over that one as far as certain privacy issues for employment. But I have no idea on that. But at least I really want the people in Northborough to know that we get very few complaints over the course of the year. And what we do get complaints on are really minor. But then again, I'm also not afraid to disclose our big oopses if we have any.
Sure.
Because again, there's no secrets what happens here. You know, we work for you. And that's my philosophy. That's I tell that to the guys here. You know, when I see them driving their car too fast, I remind them that that's not your car. The taxpayers in Northborough own it. Things like that. So yeah, moving forward, I will plan to post all of our crime stats as well.
Okay. That's super helpful.
There,
And
there are things that I can't post. Like, yeah, you'll never see a domestic assault thing on there because the law precludes us from, I could give you a number of how many we had, but I can't list addresses or people or anything like that.
Sure.
There are certain restrictions under the state statutes for that, but that is my goal moving forward. Unfortunately, my detective, who was our computer guru and ran our website, left to go for Dell Computer Corporation, if that gives you any indication of what his computer skills were. So he is now a forensic investigator for Dell Computer Services and basically kind of tripled his salary overnight. So we're missing him right now. So I've got to bring somebody else up to speed on the website. Once we get that in place, then I do intend to do that. So yeah.
Thank you so much. And the other question that I had was around recruitment. And I know that physical exam it sounds like it's grueling and a lot of folks don't pass it. But for the people who don't pass it, who maybe you were really excited about up until that point when they didn't pass the test and you couldn't put them through, is there an opportunity for you to bring any of those people back at all? And the reason, oh, you can. Okay. So is that part of your process? You say, you didn't pass the push-ups.
In our hiring process and under recruitment and hiring, our policy is that anybody that applies who doesn't make it through the process, either their interview wasn't that good or they just weren't the shining star that we were looking for. We refer to it as a Dear John letter. They get a letter from me that basically says, thank you for your interest. But as you know, you did not pass this portion of the hiring process or whatever. But we will keep your resume on file and you are free to reapply for future positions. We've actually had some of our offices actually take their own personal time and spend time with some of the applicants that didn't pass part of a physical exam and tell them what they needed to work on. I've had officers at the physical exam test when they're doing the run actually my proctors, my own officers, if they see someone that may not, is going to be really close on the timeline, they've gone out on the track and run with them and urged them on. So it's not like we're intending to fail people, but you do have to prepare for it, and you just can't come in blind, and just try to do it. It's not going to work. We find that the kids, the younger people today, they all do cardio, they all run. But what's lacking is their ability to do sit-ups and push-ups and physical upper body strength things that they're going to need if they're going to have to try to control a person or, pull somebody out of a lake or a burning car or whatever it might be. And that's where they're failing: sit-ups and push-ups, and flexibility. So,
Thank
Yep.
you, Chief.
Chief, I have a quick question, and thank you for coming, and it's great to see you. Is there a mileage requirement as well? Do you have a certain distance that you can recruit from, or is it open?
Oh, it's open. Once hired, you basically, they have 6 months to move to within a 15-mile radius of Northborough. At one time, I can tell you that when I first came on the department, 95% of the department lived in Northborough. But then it became expensive to live in, and most people now don't live in Northborough. But they have to live within a town that lies within 15-mile radius of Northborough. So it's not door to door, border to border.
50? Are you saying 15?
15 miles, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I believe there's a new state statute that the town can adopt that allows them to set their own distance. So the town could
Would
expand
that be
that.
helpful? That's my question. Would it be helpful if we expanded the mileage for recruiting?
It may. I mean, someone that lives out in the western part of it, well, you don't want to go too far, because if I have an emergency and I need to call people back to work, I don't want to be waiting an hour for them to get here. That's why the original state law was 15 miles. Actually, years ago, it used to be you had to be a resident of the city because, go back to the 40s, 30s. People didn't have cars. They lived in the cities and they relied on public transportation. So you had to live in the city if you were a police officer and firefighter. Then they expanded it to 15 miles. And now they've recently they could adopt that statute to increase that. But so far, everybody here has managed to find an affordable house within 15 miles. But no, I mean, I would not be opposed to increasing that to say 20 or 25, we're an easily accessible point, or area. So, and the only other thing I would like to pass on to you as far as recruitment goes, we do also require a bachelor's degree as an entry level. And that's contractual within the patrolmen's union. And that's because our officers get a 20% salary increase for having a bachelor's degree. It's an old state statute, the Quinn Bill, that back in the late 70s, early 80s, tried to increase police education. So they came up with a stipend system where the state reimbursed 50% of it to recruit officers or to encourage officers to go to college. That the state no longer funds it, but the town wisely, in my opinion, chose to keep it. And as a requirement for keeping it, it is required that you have one, because that's a good chunk of money, and we want the town to benefit from the college education. Again, that makes for a more diverse person to begin with. You're not just coming from high school and getting a police job, or spending 3-4 years in the military and just coming out. You need to go to school. It doesn't have to be a full-time student. We do allow people to come here that don't have criminal justice degrees. We'll take it has to be a bachelor's degree, period. But if they want to benefit from the educational portion, they have to get a degree in a criminal justice related field. And we give them a 3-year rolling period to get that. If they don't accomplish that within the first 3 years of employment, they're prohibited from getting it. Otherwise, we'd have the haves and the have-nots, and that would not be a good situation for, that's not an incentive for an officer that doesn't have a degree to work with one that's making 20% more than he does. So, so that's one of the other, that is an obstacle. We have, when I say we had 33 applicants, we had 33 qualified applicants, and that included the college degree. We had a lot of folks that we just disqualified right off the bat that applied through Indeed, or some Facebook application that they had, that some of them just didn't even have GEDs or high school education diplomas. So that's a requirement from the state. You have to have a GED or high school diploma. But our requirement here is a bachelor's degree. I can tell you that it's paid huge dividends for this town. I mean, we have highly qualified police officers.
I just wanted to say, I know the chief and talked to him about recruiting, and I know his heart is in the right place. And I know that he's been really working diligently for years trying to increase the diversity of the department. And so just want to let you know, we're here for you and we'll continue to work with you and help with the training and recruitment. So glad to see you and keep up the good work.
Well, thank you very much. And I will say that the most underrepresented population in town that's not on my department, the representation of this committee, women. And that is my first priority.
Yeah.
We have had multiple female officers here over the past. You know, we've had 2 at one point in time. As a matter of fact, just a little history lesson. Northborough had the first female police officer that was hired to be a patrol officer. She was considered a patrol officer. And that was, I believe, 1973. Her name was Linda Richardson. And she was not the first female police woman they were hired to work administrative tasks. She was hired to be a patrol officer in 1973, and she was the first in the country.
Wow.
Didn't you have to go to the Cape to become chief?
What's that?
Female.
Oh no, that was Beth Toomey. Beth left here, and she was the chief of police for many years down in West Tisbury, down on Martha's Vineyard. We've had numerous people leave here to become chiefs over the years. I mean, a lot, many, I can tell you that. It's been a very progressive department as far as recruiting good people. So, you know, and our number one goal was, we always try to, you know, my predecessor used to say the cream rises to the top, and we want the cream. You know, we want to hire the best of the best, but it does need to be a diverse group. Admittedly, I make no bones about that. I've been saying that. I said that when I was the lieutenant here. I said, you know, one of these days we're going to get called and on it. And, you know, we've had some posts over the past couple of years from folks on Facebook. When are you going to hire a female officer? Tomorrow, if you get me one, find someone, get them in here, have them apply. We got to recruit them. They got to be qualified. They got to pass that test. And you know, it's history from that point forward. So long overdue. I desperately want to have a female police officer or two. You know, it makes handling female detainees so much easier. You know, male police officers do not want to pat frisk females, not this day, not with cameras, okay, and cell phones, and it's just it's necessary, you know, and so that's my priority.
Chief Liver, I wanted to also express my gratitude for your being here and for sharing all of this information. I really appreciate the information about the training, because that was going to be one of my questions. So a follow-up question to the training you said, it sounds like the training that you have really raises awareness. I've been thinking a lot about how to move beyond training. Like there's a space between training and action, and how do we move that?
And so you know, too much training too can desensitize people to the change we're trying to make. Right. When you got to do this training, the state will come out next week and say, you have to take this training, you know, and the guys are sitting behind a computer screen, you know, it's like, I get it, you know, but you're right. We got to move on.
So I'm curious if there's anything else like community engagement or any other things that you do to, I'm just thinking that I guess I don't even know what these things would be myself. Like that's what but I know there, for example, the reason I bring up community engagement is this idea that if you know the community and know the people that you're dealing with, the likelihood of something happening because of race is lowered, because you know that person and they are no longer just a face with a color, you know. So,
you know, a lot of things I hate to say this, but a lot of the things that we could do boil down to money. In years past, when we did National Night Out with all the guys all the employees in the police department, we'd get together and down at Ellsworth McAfee Park on South Street and have a get together, invite anybody from town. We'd cook hamburgers and hot dogs and brought in pizza, and the police association paid for a lot of that but that was in what we called the good old days when there were community policing grants funds available, and we could afford to do those sort of things. I don't need money to have an officer approach someone and say hi. And I encourage that. We need to get back to that. COVID has really put a strain on what we normally do as far as being proactive. And wearing a mask is not conducive to, good conversation, and just being unable to shake somebody's hand, and not having a normal conversation because of concerns for COVID, has, I think, put a damper on some of the police relations. I mean, it has, I think, with everybody, even when I'm not working, you just tend to stay away from people and not get so close and don't want to engage in conversation. And, we got a relatively small police department, and they all know that my number one priority for them is to make it through this COVID crisis healthy. And so a lot of the proactive things that we do normally, I've suspended, just because a lot of them entailed close up personal contact and conversation. We have a park and walk program. Again, we've kind of curtailed that, where officers, if they go to a neighborhood, they park their cruiser. The bike patrol we kind of suspended because, again, that was a park at a school, Ellsworth Park, ride around, talk to people. And so those sort of things that we do. And again, it's a relatively small department. I think more people from the community know us than we know the community. It's a whole lot easier to know 22 people than it is for us to know 15,000. But we do try to make every contact as positive as we can. But there are things that we can do to improve upon that. And that's to, when this, hopefully soon, everybody on the department here will mostly get their second vaccine on Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And maybe that'll kind of open things up a little bit more for the folks that won't be so hesitant. So that's that.
Deidre, you just reminded me or brought up something that I think is worth exploring. If there are ideas that we may have that we could share with the chief as well, when
Absolutely.
You're thinking about community outreach, if you have any ideas.
Yes. Years ago, again, when Chief Hutchins was there, he had the People Connection that he started, which was a group of just parents and folks from the community and clergy. And they went out and they tried to do good things, make quality of life, address quality of life issues, lend support to families and things like that. But as time went by, that became more specialized, and you couldn't share that kind of information. It involved the school students, so you can't, now the state law, we can't discuss that because that's private. We used to take, takes a village to raise a child, and that we used to have that when I was a juvenile detective. We would meet at the school, and we had a student support network, and someone would bring a family in crisis or a child that was in need of services to as a subject, and we all brought our little slice of the pie to the table that we knew about, and we would come up with an action plan and present it to the family and try to work with them. But again, that doesn't happen to the extent that it used to, only because the educational laws have changed to the point where the police can't even be involved in the schools for the most part. We're not entitled to any kind of information. Otherwise, one-way street though, we can give them anything we want, so, which we do. We have a very good relationship with the schools. So
I just wanted to say a few things. So Chief, thank you for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to get your perspective on our community. And it sounds like certainly this is not unique to Northborough. So this is a big problem. Is there something that you're seeing, and it's similar to what Virginia asked you as well, but is there anything that you're seeing that other communities, peers of yours and other communities are doing that we can help you achieve here?
Well, I could use a bigger station. I don't think you want to go there right now, especially with the assistant town administrator here.
She's putting her face in her palm. That was
Yeah, ask an open-ended question. No, we experience, I consider that we're the beneficiaries of a lot of community support. So it's not like we don't feel like we're being ostracized or anything. And we have very good relationships that we've developed over the years. Folks are constantly coming in here and bringing us goodies and stuff. But again, I had to put a sign on the front door that said, please don't bring your home baked goods anymore. But I'm really kind of frowned upon that before. But we get a lot of community support in that sense. But as far as, I think, just giving us feedback when you hear something, or you hear somebody grumbling about something that a police officer did. If people give you examples of things that they've experienced and it was negative, as a group, please let me know about it. I can't fix anything. I can't fix what's broken if I don't know about it. Police officers work with very little supervision. So they're out in their patrol cars. I have a sergeant that's working. He's the supervisor for the shift. Most of the time he's in the station approving reports, dealing with people coming in the station, filling overtime. There's a host of things he does, but then he's also supposed to be available to go to calls and give advice and help to younger officers and supervise situations out of the street. But the officer, for basically 8 hours of the shift, they're out on their own unless they get sent to a call with another officer. Their car is their office. They're in it for basically 8 hours a day. So they can stop a multitude of cars and they might have a bad interaction with someone, and maybe the officer might have been rude. But if someone doesn't call and tell me, there's nothing I can do about it, because, most people don't self-report. Although we do, actually. I have officers come in here and say, Chief, you're probably going to get a call today, or you might get a call tomorrow. I just had a bad stop with a person and this is what happened. And 9 times out of 10, the people don't call, but the officer self-reported, so yeah, I mean, that sort of information is always good. Feedback.
Yeah. But the problem is the recruiting issue is a long-term issue. I mean, it sounds like, to go back to the point that you made, that, back in the day, children were more involved in ride-alongs and teaching young kids and what's required to be a successful police officer. Yep. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with our mission.
No.
As diversity and inclusion, but we can certainly, I think, make a suggestion to our school committees to reinstate those tag-alongs, those ride-alongs for kids, and to help young people that are looking for, maybe I want to be a police officer and I live in Northborough. I mean, do they do that in Northborough? Do they, even in the elementary schools? I mean, maybe.
Well, again, COVID put we teach the DARE program. So for 10 weeks out of the year, a police officer, a trained DARE instructor goes in and talks about decision-making, bad choices, how to make sound decisions. And obviously the focus is not so much on drug abuse resistance education as it was initially. Mm-hmm. It's more about life skills and making decisions. But that really was an opportunity for us to have a police officer in uniform interact with elementary school kids, 6th graders. And we recently expanded that into the middle school, to the 7th grade, so that there was a bridge, exiting elementary school grade, entering junior high or middle school grade. Maintaining that program has been difficult, because it's time consuming for the officers, and they only want to do it for so long. And it's at one point we had 6 DARE officers. Now I'm down to like 4, because 2 of them just left. and they left for the private sector. Again, another issue in retention in police work is a lot of people are retiring. I can tell you, in the last, I'd say in the last 6 months or so, there have been more police chiefs in Massachusetts that have retired than ever before in one period of time. Just because they feel like they're being assailed, it's almost like, let this be somebody else's headache. But, fortunately, knocking on wood here, we don't have those sort of issues here. We just don't. I'm again, knocking on wood and saying my prayers that everything stays the same, but feedback.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all you do, your entire force. We appreciate what you do to protect us as a community, truly.
Thank you very much. I get a really good, dedicated crew of people here. And like I said, the recruitment is key. Again, best of the best. I don't care what they look like. It's we're the face of the community. And, we're the most visible form of government, and we need to represent everybody. So, my pleasure.
Well, Chief, thank you so much for coming in and spending time with us tonight. I know that some of the conversations we had, the biggest takeaway I've taken away from those conversations is the priorities of the police department are keeping citizens safe and keeping the department safe. And, the diversity and inclusion, as you said, is a component of that. So thank you for being.
I will end, and thank you, but I will end with a comment that was made frequently by a former director of the Training Council, and that people talk about us as law enforcement officers. In Northborough, we're police officers. 90% of our day is not spent enforcing laws. It's spent dealing with quality of life issues for families and people in town. I try to encourage here, and my guys know it, I expect a guardian mentality on my people. We're here to help, to help people make it through the day, navigate their problems with their children, the schools, the neighbors, whatever that may be. And the goal is not law enforcement, it's quality of life. Yes, there are times when we have to draw a line in the sand and we may have to charge somebody with crime or arrest somebody because we have no other alternative, but it's guardian first, warrior second. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you very much. Thanks for taking the time. It's very much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye, Chief.
I think just one comment on Chief Liver joining us. I think Virginia summed it up best when she said, as a committee, what can we do to help Chief Liver and the department achieve the goals that they've already have in place. As Chief said, he's hiring female officers and getting a diverse police force has been a goal of his since he took the job. So, we can have a follow-up discussion on what we can advocate for the department.
Just really quick, I do think the recruitment is probably the most critical piece in terms of the police department and what the department can do to move forward in a diverse within diversity and inclusion. But I was, even as an employee of the town, this is a little embarrassing to say, I had no idea that there was a tattoo policy in place for officers in Northborough, and that's shocking to me. I came from another community that had gotten rid of the tattoo policy for police officers, so coming here, again, it's to no fault of the chiefs or the department, because at one time it was, tattoo was taboo, and I understand that, but we are, as a culture, as a community, I think we are so far beyond that. Like, I can't believe that we're even still having conversations about it. As an employee of the town, so I am taken aback, and I definitely want to put that on the list. I have a full tattoo sleeve, And to think that I couldn't be a police officer is just, it's a little shocking to me. So I just wanted to express that to the group. And I definitely want to put that on the list. Little changes like that, I think, can have a big impact. You know, especially there are certain cultures where tattoos are part of the culture. I mean, you're talking about people who grow up and getting a tattoo is part of growing up, part of, becoming a member of their culture or society. And so to just automatically eliminate an entire group of people for a tattoo is just, we got to get beyond that. So I want to put that on the list. I also am surprised to hear that at one time there was National Night Out and now there's not. I came from a community that had National Night Out. It's a huge undertaking, but it is an incredible community event. And it's a way to provide everyone and young people with positive interactions with their police department, which I think is what we're trying to get at. Youth police academy is another thing I thought about that I had done in a previous community. Again, just giving people the opportunity to have positive interactions with their local police department is what we're after. So again, recruitment and hiring, I want to focus on it, but honestly, that discussion with the chief just gave me so many other ideas that I'm so glad we were able to have him in and talk about some of that stuff.
So I also think we need to widen our sphere, because 15 miles east or west or, Northborough, you aren't going to get much diversity. 20 may be a little better, or 25, but I think that we might, maybe need to talk with them. And I think you all may have read in the last report, Fred, my husband Fred, volunteered to work with them to try to help in the recruiting, and did sit in on the last set of interviews and plan to do so. And anything that I think we come up with, Chief Liver would, really appreciate.
I was also wondering if they might have like a pre-fitness training program, like for people who are interested, but either tried and didn't make it, or people who just don't know the requirements. If there's actually a group that trains together, and maybe, because that should be that's a terrible reason for people not to make it, because it's so doable,
Yeah, no.
I was actually thinking when the department starts to add, the policy manual and those other things to the website, if they also include on the website, what are the components of the test, so that people can see, all right, I need to run X amount, I need to be able to do X amount of sit-ups, I need to be able to do X amount of push-ups. So, if people are aware and they still fail, that's just a whole nother ball of wax. If you're walking into it and you're surprised, then, it's tough for me to believe that in this day and age, with the availability of information, that people aren't aware of what's expected when they go to take the test. But, it's certainly no reason why we can't include it on the, the town website, so that candidates for the department, when they apply, can just be referred to the town website for what's expected.
Great idea.
I have a question for Becca. Last meeting, I believe that you guys were talking about Google Docs, and just, in talking about all of these things, about essentially, potential recommendations that we can bring to the Board of Selectmen once, our year's task is done. How can we organize these thoughts? And did you research Google Docs by any chance, and whether it violates open meeting law?
Yes, and it does not violate open meeting law. So I'm happy to set up a document and share the link with everyone in the group, and then we can all just start, adding a list of ideas. Just because, stuff comes up at a meeting, and then, we go to the next meeting and we forget that we talked about it. And so I understand that. So I will create a document and share that with the group after tonight's meeting, so we can get all of our ideas on one page.
That'd be great. Thank you, Becca.
That'd be great. Thank you, Becca. Anything else on Chief Liver before we move on? Nope. Okay. So Mary and Chica shared a survey that they put together that they wanted to share with Northborough moms. And I looked into some different D&I surveys from universities, different municipalities, and probably found, I don't know, hundreds of questions and kind of went through them all and put together another survey with 10 questions. And I really liked the 2 questions that you two had in yours. I thought that was a great place. But my thinking on it was that if we're going to have a survey, can we add up to maybe like 8 to 10 questions in the survey, so when people take it, that we can just gather as much information, a reasonable amount of information while they're interacting with the survey.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the link for the survey I put together, I think was sent to everybody, had that. So I don't know if everybody had a chance to look at that and if anybody had any feedback. And if not, it's not, I don't think we need to come to a solid decision tonight. But I would like to get the survey out within the next couple weeks.
Are
So,
you talking about the one from Andover?
yeah. You're talking about the Andover survey?
Yeah, there was Andover, and then I did one on Survey Monkey. Becca, did you?
I didn't
I
do the
actually-
survey bucket.
Yeah, I think I forgot to send it out, Tim.
Okay,
So I'll do that now. The other option is if you wanted to share your screen and go through them, we could go through the questions now, if the group wanted to do that.
Or we could add it
Otherwise-
onto the Google Doc, maybe even. That could be another
Yeah.
option.
oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
So Tim, you're thinking something just for Northborough moms or something broader?
Well, something broader, something for the community.
Okay.
So like you guys, if you share it on Northborough Moms, I can share it on Northborough Dads. I'm part of others, like there's other Northborough Facebook pages that we can share it on. I have my selectman page that I can share it on. You know, there's other ways. My thinking is just if people are willing to take a survey, well, let's just put in 8 to 10 questions so that we can get the most feedback that we can. I think if you do over like 10 questions, people start to lose interest pretty quick. So I was just thinking if we did like 8 to 10 questions and then a couple demographic questions, real simple, age, those sorts of things. And then if we can get that out the next couple weeks, give people a couple weeks to take the survey. I've actually got a master's in analytics, so I can dig through the survey and the data that comes in, and then put together something so that we can look at the results at our next meeting.
Okay.
I have a question for Lauren and or Deirdre. Do you know if, I understand that a survey just went out to, I think, Algonquin students and or parents with respect to diversity. Are you aware of this survey? And if so, do we have any results from that?
I'm not aware. I'm on the K-8 committee. And I know Deirdre and I think we had our last meeting for our Coalition for Diversity. I think it was like early January. So this could have all transpired since then. Deirdre, do you remember hearing anything about our last meeting about that survey?
No, so I know that, so there have been a group of subcommittees that have been charged, and there was a report out, but no one said anything about having a survey yet. But that was like Lauren said, way back in January at the beginning. So
I do
it could
have,
happened by then.
yeah, I took one note from the community engagement group, and they said they have a survey that they had drafted to use at the high school and the middle school. And I believe that might have been created by Ben, a student, if I recall. Um,
Okay.
so, but other than that, I haven't heard anything, Mary. Do you think that our group would be interested in obtaining those results to understand more about young people in our community?
I would,
Yeah, if we could get the results for that, that would be tremendous.
even to get like the response rate, how many people took the time to complete the survey, and then it might give us a better idea of what to expect on our end.
Right. Yeah.
Along with,
And also just open up,
Well-
where's the need?
When
Yeah,
they brought up that survey, my question was, some of the questions are things that we get asked in the as elementary parents, like annually. So I'm curious if some of the things we want to know are already available through other avenues. So as we read through the questions, maybe we should think about that, like, because I know for my kids, I have to fill out the same survey every year, just about, accessibility in the home and different things. So
It's more demographics though, isn't it? Or no? The forms
a
you get
bunch of
every fall.
So
The
I'm
orange
just
one.
curious if we have access to more data than we think. And then, so if we're going to put something out there, it should be like something we really can't get elsewhere. Or that is, I guess, maybe something that wouldn't be out of date. Like if those other things are out of date, then maybe
Right.
we should ask it anyway.
Yeah,
but-
I think when you get a chance to look at the Survey Monkey survey, the questions that I included, I tried to be as broad as possible with the questions, like really like focused on community-wide type of questions. So I don't know if those are the types of questions that get asked. And the other thing too is I know, my kids are 8 and 5, so as a parent, I think you just have a different perspective on things than people that maybe have kids that are out of the school system, or kids that aren't even in the school system yet. So I still think it would be important to get the survey out to as many people as possible with a different perspective.
Agree.
Yes, I think it's important, not everyone is a parent in town. I'm not a parent. So just, understanding that there are other people besides parents in town, even though our families are very important. So just making sure that we are capturing everyone's thoughts and perceptions on, whether we are a culturally aware and inclusive environment.
So I think it's too bad that the senior center is closed right now, but there is a wealth of information that we could get just surveying people who are involved with the senior center. They bring a different perspective, but also very important for the community, to the community.
Yeah, Virginia, I'm actually the liaison for
I know.
So I'm planning on going to the meeting next week.
Okay, I'll be here.
And I'll specifically bring up this topic and speak with Liz and see if there's a way that we can get that out to the senior community.
Great. We haven't been meeting, so for everybody's knowledge, we're gonna Zoom next week for the senior center. So that'll be a challenge and interesting approach, because we just haven't met since the summer.
Yeah.
Because of the pandemic. So
I have a question for Shika and Mary. So, so do I understand correctly that you created a survey already, or you started a survey?
We did. It's a pretty quick survey, but to Tim's point, I think it's worth expanding it and having more questions. And we had a quick intro to a post that would have been posted on the Northborough Moms group, just kind of explaining the reason behind the survey and what help we could use, and hopefully get people to respond. So yeah.
That's great.
Looking forward to seeing Tim's version now, because I think it's worth having a few more questions in there.
Definitely.
How should we go about sort of deciding on our final questions? Is that a sort of our ask tonight? Is that something that we want to do between meetings?
Well, I was thinking if Tim shared his and if Marion, she didn't mind sharing theirs, maybe it's a combination of those two surveys to get to the one, or using those and adding a few more. But I thought that Becca's going to drop Tim's into Google Docs, and Mary and Shika's could go there as well. And then let's take a look at it and see if we want to add or delete.
Perfect.
I really like the idea of using Facebook. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh man, I belong to like 10 random groups. Like there's the Trails group. So I think we could get some really good coverage by doing that. But are there other modes of distribution that we could tap into?
Well, I think that one of the great things, as you know, with SurveyMonkey, since it's just a link, like when we post to Facebook groups, there's no reason to say, like, if you want to share the link with other groups or with your own circle, or with your own community, feel free to share the link.
Tim, last week, Mary at the last meeting, remember, Mary asked about the sign. Could we put on the sign in the center of town, information about the survey, or the link to the survey that, there's a survey and please go here and take it. And we could hit everybody who's going through town, possibly, in addition to those avenues we know of and that we use.
Yeah, we probably reach out to the Lions, to the Rotary, and see about getting something up there.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Your idea, Mary. So thank you for
Good idea to tap into that resource. Great resource.
Yep.
I just want to really quick at least have a discussion about self-selection bias in distributing a survey to only certain locations. It worries me a little bit because you're only going to get people get to choose whether or not they want to answer the survey, right? Which means you're going to get a certain answer from a certain group of people, and it's not going to reflect the people that chose not to answer the survey, which is a self-selection bias. So I wanted to at least have a discussion about what's the value in the information that we're trying to get out of the survey, and how is that going to inform our work? Because, I think just asking people, like, do you think that there's, a need for greater diversity and inclusion in Northborough? Like, I kind of feel like that question's already been answered because we're here, right? And we're trying to do the work. So I just want to get people's thoughts on that before we embark on doing this survey where there's this potential bias. I just don't want that to have too much weight in terms of the work that we do, because we need to acknowledge that there's an inherent bias in doing a survey that way. It's not like you're doing schools and you're targeting the student population, because that's the group that you need information on. That's totally different. And that's, they have a selected group of people that they want information on. For us, there's really no way for us to guarantee that everybody will see the survey, which is going to create a bias in the results. So I don't know if people have thoughts on that. I just want to bring it up.
Good point.
Why are we doing a survey? What is the purpose of the survey?
My understanding was we were trying to do this in lieu of being able to do like actual sit downs with people. And so how can we get a pulse of, diversity and inclusion and the mindset behind it within the community, so that we could then try to tailor some of our recommendations to that. That was what I had gone into it with. I don't know if that's how the rest of the team feels about it, but that was definitely my thought on why we would even start here.
I think, Shika, that was my thought too. Becca, I completely understand,
Absolutely.
the cause for concern about, self-selection bias. I think if we use this as just one data collection method, and, as we go throughout this process, we use other data collection methods. It could be, like talking with Chief Livert tonight, collecting qualitative data, and then that sort of paints a whole picture. With the survey, I mean, it's sort of like Yelp, right? You either get the people who want to complain or the people who are like, you're doing a great job. So you're probably not going to get the middle ground, because those people don't really care about taking the survey. They're just sort of neutral. So I've done a lot of surveys and data collections in my short public health tenure. And it's definitely a concern, but I think as long as we're not just honing in all of our recommendations on this survey and we're keeping sort of a wide net of data collection, I'm okay with doing this.
And maybe it's the introduction, the preface on our survey that delivers that message, that it's not just targeting one audience. It's a data collection effort to find out how people feel and if they have ideas to share, and right.
Yeah, I think I saw it in the Acton Andover survey. I liked the open-ended questions too at the end. And it was asking, what are some strengths of the town? What are some challenges? So I think collecting that qualitative data would be really important as well. Shika and Mary, what were your two questions in
Shika, do you have
your
it with you?
proposed survey?
Yeah, I don't even remember them offhand, to be honest.
I don't have it with me, and I should, and I apologize, but I don't.
But I think we'll all
Okay.
get access to it anyway, thankfully, and so we can like digest. I can't remember offhand. They were.
So I will go back, and I could go either way, but I'm sort of thinking, and maybe we need to think a little bit more about this because, Tim, you put together a very detailed, an excellent presentation to the Board of Selectmen, and you told them, you stated what the purpose, what you wanted to do, and everything, and that was what was accepted, right? And you were given the permission then to form this committee. So are we premature in doing a survey till we actually, or should we actually explore what you presented to the Board of Selectmen that got us to be where we are today?
Well, I think the survey will be part of the presentation to the Board of Selectmen. This is the data from a survey that we collected. This is what the respondents said, because it will give us some data points to what the sentiment is in the community, which is really what we're trying to get at with the survey, is how do people in the community feel about diversity, equity, and inclusion. In the most important thing with any survey is how many true respondents that you get. So as long as we can do a good job of getting people to take and complete the survey, that goes a long way to make the data more, take out some of the bias in the data. Like if you were to take a survey against guns to a gun rally, the data that you're going to collect is you can get a million completed surveys, but your data is going to be completely biased because you only got it from one specific group of people. So if we use the survey and the link to share it with as many different groups of people that we can, and we get a sufficient number of people from each of those groups to take the survey, there are methods that you can use to iron out some of the bias that may be present in the data. You do clusters and latency and latency variables, and there's a whole bunch of ways, but you just need to get enough people to take the survey.
So if we included some of that demographic information and then compared essentially, that information with the demographics from our recent town census, would that be able to tell us essentially how much bias there could be in the survey?
I don't know.
Not sure.
Potentially.
Like it might be quite clear
Not
that,
sure.
we're missing an entire demographic, whether it's an age demographic, a racial demographic. If we collect that data, if we know that we have X amount of people who fall in this age category, and, we had 2 respondents in that age category, that's going to tell us whether we missed an opportunity to collect data from a certain group.
Yeah. Yeah, we could certainly compare the results of ours data collection with the census information from the town. I actually had Andy Dowd send me over all the census information, so I have all that information for the town. So,
Do you know how many people responded offhand?
to the census,
Roughly? Yeah.
I have no idea. I don't know. Hopefully, everybody.
Oh no, there's
It's
supposed to be
important.
15,000 plus people in town.
Yeah, it was right around there. I forget what the exact number, 14,000, 911, something like that.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question from somebody who's watching our meeting this evening. And she's asking if the survey can be shared beyond social media.
Yes, absolutely.
Is there a way for the town to send it out in one of their, I know like I get town notifications sometimes about, trash delay and voting, and maybe that's all through the town clerk's office. Is there a way that we could get on that list and send out this survey?
Yeah, so we could put the link on the diversity committee has a page on the town website. So we could put the link there, and then we could push the link out through town news. Again, you have to subscribe to town news, so it's not like it just goes out to every resident in the town. It's people who are already subscribed to getting the updates from the website, but it is another method for us to reach people.
How about through something like Community Advocate?
I mean, we can reach out to them and ask that they post something. And they've been willing to post stuff for us in the past, but we can't force them to post anything. We can ask.
Or if we have somebody who wants to write an article about the town of Northborough's Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and that we have a survey, and to kind of let residents know it's coming and where to look for it.
Yeah.
We have a good contact with them that would do an article for. She's Liz Nolan.
Yeah, and Liz is the one that's posing the question. Yeah, I'm talking.
Liz, well, she could do the article because she works with Community Advocate. So we would have her tell her yes. Tell her Virginia said yes, and she should write it.
There you go, Liz. You got the answer right there. As long as we're okay and the town is okay with going in that direction. I think that was the purpose of the question.
Virginia said yes. Virginia said yes.
I think as long as we add like the very first question of the survey is, are you a Northborough resident? And if people answer no, because obviously the Community Advocate spans many communities, then we say thank you for your time.
Yes.
I think the way that they could just, direct it to Northborough people, residents, because they have a Shrewsbury portion and that portion, but Liz can help us out for sure.
Right.
Deidre, I saw your son. Did he go away?
He did. He wanted to know if this was a work meeting and that it's too late to be having a work meeting.
How old is he?
10.
Nice, nice.
He's a twin, actually.
Really? Both boys or a boy and a girl?
Both boys.
Nice. I had twin cousins, born on my father's birthday.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so are we good with the survey? We've got a plan. Everybody can look at the survey. If everybody can leave their feedback, if they have any in the Google Doc. Once I hear back from everybody, what I can do then is put together the survey in SurveyMonkey, and Becca, I'll have to talk with you about some of the logistics around that. And then send out the link to the committee, and we can start posting.
I know we're going into an hour and a half here, but I have one more thing I wanted to make mention of. If we can just take 2 more minutes, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So has anyone heard of the series Uncomfortable Conversation with the Black Man?
Yes.
I think it would be helpful if the committee almost had that as a little like homework assignment to kind of watch the series. I've only begun to look at it, but I don't know, Tim, if you've had a chance to look at it and if you thought it was valuable, but I actually grabbed that idea from another community, and it's pretty impressive, the information that's coming out, and to have a candid conversation with a Black man, and to ask uncomfortable questions and be in an uncomfortable situation so that we're more well-versed when we might be talking to someone who may not see that, you know, the lack of diversity or the implicit bias just because of lack of knowledge, because they haven't been educated that it exists. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to it just because I'm interested in you know the making the world a better place, you know. So I would encourage people, if they have the time, to check it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that like a YouTube video? Is it a podcast? Is it
You
a book?
can Google it. I think it is on YouTube. No, actually, you know what? There's a website. Hold on.
Okay, so it's a video.
Looks like there's definitely a book.
There's like 9 different series.
But yeah, here's the podcast.
Yeah, you know what? I can include it in the minutes.
The link I found, I'll put it in the chat.
Awesome, thank you.
I mean, we have conversations
Hope
with
I can't do
Matt
that.
Maloney and Roger Goodell, Chelsea Handler, Chip and Joanna Gaines, all different perspectives, and people really being very candid about what they don't know, you know, and how badly people feel because they're not educated, and they come out and say, why are we having these Black Lives Matter, you know, protests or rallies, whatever. I think it has a lot to do with just lack of information and lack of knowledge, being uneducated.
Speaking of that, in the Google repository that we're building, I wonder if it would be a good idea to share resources and things like that, books or different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I think one of the things that we talked about during our last meeting was for everybody to think about some medium to long-term goals or projects or actions that they would like to see the community take part in. And one of, you know, obviously one of the easiest ones is just training. Is what are we going to do for training not only the town staff, but are there things that we can do for the community at the library? Are there speakers that we can get in for speak at the library? Community affairs, are there things that we can do with community affairs? Like there's a whole gamut of things that we can do around that. So I think using the Google Doc to share resources is a great idea, because it will at least it will help me think through all the different options that we have.
I would ask Tim if I could share. There is, I don't know if many of you know, her name is Kelsey Wernham, Dr. Kelsey Wernham, and she has a diversity company. She spoke, I mentioned it at the beginning before we started to Lauren. She spoke for MASC, the Massachusetts School Committee Association, at this meeting, and she got really high raves. She's going to be speaking for MASC on February the 23rd from 6 to 7:30. And I'm not sure, I can see if I can share that information. Her topic before was understanding the connection between cultural proficiency and equity. But it must have been great because people have asked for her again, but so I don't know how good, because I haven't heard of, but I will see if I can share that information. I'm actually chairing the what's known as Division 10 now. The minority caucus for MASC, and we plan to have a number of different speakers and topics, and I will share them with the town as well. So if there's anything we think we want, we'll have it available as well.
Virginia, I misspoke earlier. I actually did see Dr. Wernham, and she was incredible. I did take notes.
Okay.
So if anyone's interested, I can give you those notes. I even took screenshots of her presentation and my own annotation. So if you're interested, it was definitely worthwhile. And Virginia, if it is available, I think sending that link to non-MASC members would be nice.
I will ask if I can do that. The Minority Caucus, this is interesting, and I should just quickly with you. MASC started the Minority Caucus 4 years ago, but there was a lot of hang up on the name because they didn't know that, was it open to everybody or only just people of color? So we just said, forget the name. We don't want to get hung up in that. We're Division 10 and we're inclusion, diversity, and equity. And we'll bring forth speakers and topics and trainings to help the schools in the state of Massachusetts. So, I will get that, see if I can get that information, and I will share it with Beck and Tim to get out to everybody. Thank you, Lauren. I didn't hear her, but I heard she was good.
That would be great. Thank you. And then in the Google Docs, if everybody, if anybody has any ideas about the medium and long term things that we could do, if we could start a section in the Google Doc with those ideas, so that way we can start organizing those ideas. I'd like to put together, teams of 1 or 2 people to tackle each area, so that they can start gathering information, so that we can start putting together the proposal for the recommendations for the Board of Selectmen. That way, so that we have all the information. That would be great. And the one last thing that I wanted to discuss was we did get that email from the director at the Y about coming in and speaking with the committee. And personally, I think that'd be a great idea. The Y does so much great work, in not only, the one that's local, but in surrounding communities. And is there some way for partnership's the wrong word, but volunteer services or a way for our community to help out with the Y's mission. So I just wanted to see if anybody had any feedback on that.
I think it'd be great to take them up on that, and perhaps in the next meeting, if it makes sense, to have them join, like we had the chief join today. I think that'd be great. Get their feedback
Okay.
and learn from them.
I agree with
Okay.
Shika. I feel like, talking with Chief Liver tonight just really gave us a good overall picture. And I think that's part of this data collection that we're doing so that we can make informed recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and knowing what types of opportunities there could be for community engagement and partnerships is really important. And the fact that, someone's coming to us saying, hey, we want to get involved. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely in support.
Okay. All right. I will reach out to I forget the person's name. I'll reach out to him and see if he's available to join us in our next meeting. Anybody have anything else that they wanted to discuss?
I had two things actually. The first is, I know that we're in a pandemic, and it is, it's hard to reach out to the community in a way that feels maybe more genuine than we might do in person. But I forget who was saying it, maybe at our first meeting. I do think that there's still I think that we can have some type of, like, maybe not public hearing, but a way where people can come and either share their experiences in town or share their ideas, because we have great ideas, but right now tonight we're only 7 people, and although we have different perspectives and different backgrounds, I think that hearing from others is going to be really important in this process. And the survey is one part of that. So if we could make that happen, I've seen a lot of webinars take place where you have a panel, and then you have a member of the community who wants to speak, and then you give them permission, audio permission to speak. So I guess I just don't want to write that off. Maybe have future conversations about that. And if any of you have had, a virtual public hearing or virtual community events like that where people can talk and discuss, I'd be really interested to hear that as well. So that was just like one thing I wanted to bring up. I do have one other thing, but did anyone have anything they wanted to add first?
So Lauren, we do that with our school committee, and what we do is we allow an audience portion, and we don't talk, but we let people, express some of their, if we say we want to hear from the community on their experiences or something, then we would allow like 15 minutes and give people so much time to talk and share their information, and then, go back to our meeting part. We've done that with the school committee.
Yeah, so I don't know, like, that could be part of future meetings. We could have an audience sharing part where we dedicate 15, 20 minutes to anyone who would like to participate, just so that people have opportunities beyond a survey to give their input. Or it could be, a whole separate meeting devoted to sort of engaging in the community. Again, like, virtual doesn't feel as great as in person, but maybe there's a way we can be creative. I don't know what other people's thoughts are about that.
I think it's a very important part of this process. Whether it's done via virtual or in person, I do think having one meeting or separate event where we engage with the community is going to be important.
Yep, I agree.
And
Good
I did have,
suggestion.
Wonder if that also goes kind of both ways. Like, should we be talking to the community about what we're doing, or is this not? I don't know.
No, I talk with people in the community whenever I can about this.
Okay.
just because it's, you know, to Lauren's point, it's all points of data, of information, of feedback, of learning about what's going on in the community on a day-to-day basis that some of us just may not see or experience. So it's important to get that feedback from people. And I do try to get that. I mean, granted, it's not as often as I like because of, you know, you can't go out and see people. So but when I do, I do try to, you know, speak with people about that.
Thanks.
I did want to bring up, I went to a meeting earlier this week and I had talked to Becca and Tim about it. So I met with the visibility subcommittee of Northborough Dems, and so they invited me mostly just because I knew people part of that group and they knew that I was part of this committee, and they wanted to hear about what our work is. And so I was able to share that with them, which was really great. And so they shared that part of their visibility subcommittee's sort of task is to really get people in town more aware of our local government in general and opportunities to participate as a volunteer on many different committees, such as this one. And so they're planning a speaker series, sort of like an intro to local government. But beyond that, they're really thinking about how can they have, you know, a big event that really speaks to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so they're really at the planning stage right now, but they would love to have, you know, different committees be involved as they sort of get their ideas off the ground. And so at this point, that's sort of where they're at. So I just sort of went to hear information, but I just wanted to let you know that I did attend, and they're very open to having, you know, anyone from this committee attend as long as we don't have a quorum, and, you know, learn more and give their suggestions. So it was just great meeting with them, knowing that other people have heard about our committee and they're excited about it and they want to include us.
Who are they again, Lauren?
Northborough Democrats, and it's the Visibility Subcommittee.
Who are some of the members?
Jaylon Rowe, Kelly Gannett, Susie Sislika. I'm forgetting everyone who was there.
Okay.
Most of the people I met, honestly, were people I met for the first time. What really impressed me is there was a bunch of students, either Algonquin students or recent graduates in college, and
So-
they started Vote Northborough. So I don't know if you follow them on social media, you should.
I
And
don't do
so
media.
they're a social media group that during our local elections promotes you know, awareness about different issues for town meeting. They talk about you know, what the warrant articles are about.
I know what you're talking about now. Thank you. I know who they are.
Yeah. So they
Thank
were
you.
really great too. And so it's just great to see young people. And so they're, you know, into local government, but also like this big idea of, well, let's connect our local government with the idea of diversity as well. So right now it seems like just sort of more of an idea. So if you guys have any thoughts, feel free to let me know and I can, you know, be a liaison, or you can show up to another meeting.
Great, thank you. Thank you for going. That's and representing the committee. That's excellent. And it's great to hear, you know, get the email from the Y and then this opportunity that people on you know, outside of the Zoom meeting are taking notice of the work we're doing. So that's really exciting. Anybody have anything else tonight? No? All righty. So how about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Becca, anything else?
Just need a roll call.
Just a roll call.
Meekins, aye.
What's that?
I said Meekins, aye.
George Sips, George, aye.
Mary Leach, aye.
Deidre Writing, aye.
Sheikah Holland, aye.
Lauren Bailey Jones, aye.
And Tim Kalen, aye.
Good night, all.
Good night, guys. I'll follow up with an email with the link to the Google Doc so we can start getting our ideas on paper.
Perfect.
Thank you
Sounds
so
good.
much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.